Greetings, Ms. Bell here, and today I wanted to do a tutorial on how to use the TestNav website with scholars, just to get them acquainted with how to use the actual platform and the tools. So I always go to Google, type in DC Park practice test, and we want to do it on the TestNav's website. So practice test DC assessments is usually where I go. And I'm gonna do an ELA one first. I'll do another tutorial for math, so stay tuned for that. I specialize in 5th grade, so I'm going to do one for 5th grade. 5th grade computer-based unit 1. All right, so all of these practice tests are on TestNav, and the TestNav is a website that scholars are going to use. This is the platform that they're going to see when they take their PARCC test each year when they take it. So this is practice, so you can just do start. So these are the directions basically that you will be reading to scholars, so you can get acquainted with them. You can let scholars get acquainted with them. That way they're not asking you things that they shouldn't be asking you at the actual test. So let's get started. So first we'll go over the different parts of the TestNav platform, just so you can get an understanding of everything that's here. So first we have the directions. The directions are always located here at the top. Let's see, erase all this. Undo. Use my pointer. All right, so the directions are always located here at the top of any passage. You're going to analyze a passage. It lets them know you're going to be analyzing more than one passage, and it just gives them some information. So again, the directions are always in bold at the top. Scholars also need to know as far as scrolling. So I want you all to notice something. So when I scroll up and down, it scrolls the page up and down. However, it does not do that for the text. So this is the text box. As you can see, it's highlighted blue. So please let your scholars know that in order to access the text box, it should be in blue. So in order for me to see all of the text, I clicked inside the text box and I can scroll up and down with my mouse pad on the computer, or I can use the up and down arrows. They both work with manipulating the text. Also, I show my scholars, I show them this bar right here. This bar is an indicator of your location in the passage. So if it's all the way at the top, then you know that you are at the beginning of your passage. You are not finished reading the passage until you see that the cursor is all the way at the bottom. So this is the text box. And again, you want to practice scrolling from the top up into the bottom of the text with your scholars, so nobody is losing points because they didn't scroll down and read the whole text. So I need scholars to understand that this is how they navigate up here with the arrows. This is how they navigate from question to question. If scholars want to go to any particular question, then they click on review and it will take them right to the question. Most scholars are familiar with the bookmark aspect. You bookmark a question when you want to come back to it. You want to flag it and tell yourself, hey, I didn't answer part B, so let me go back to it when I get done. And once you bookmark it, they show up in your review, so you're able to see how many bookmarks you have. Another tool that scholars need to know. So right now, the tool that I'm using is the pointer. The pointer is on. So anywhere I hover, it will point. Okay, we have a notepad. The notepad is where scholars may take notes. And I don't like the notepad because sometimes if there's a glitch in technology, it'll close out and not save whatever the scholar took their time to type in. Also, so I want you to see that this notepad is for question 6. So I'm gonna type some notes about the story here on question 6. If I want to go to question 1, I am unable to access the notes that I put for question 6. So I suggest scholars use their pen and paper that's passed out, because if they're relying solely on the notepad for their notes, they may or may not find it. And as test proctors on the day of testing, we can't say, oh, well, your notes are on whatever problem you took. So make sure you share that with your scholars. Here is the answer eliminator. One of the strategies that we go over with scholars is to eliminate answers that don't make sense. Okay, and so you have to click on the answer eliminator. If you hover above this, it'll tell you what each of the tools is. Okay, so I eliminated all of these. Okay, and now that I'm at my pointer, I can't uneliminate them. In order for you to uncross out everything, you have to go back to your answer eliminator and then click on whichever ones you did not mean to eliminate. Okay, so that's the answer eliminator. Some other very helpful tools that scholars need to understand are located right here. So where it says guess, the scholar's name would be there on the day of test. So they need to understand, like, this is their profile drop down. And this is where most of the information for scholars is. I like to stay away from change the background, because, you know, scholars will sit here and play with this all day. But there are some scholars that actually benefit from seeing a contrast in their text versus the passage. I'm going to just put it back on default. All right, another important tool is to enable the magnifier. So a magnifier is this square. You can move it over anywhere that you would like to, but it's kind of difficult when manipulating this square. It's best if you are using it for short words or short answer choices, but to see a whole passage is kind of tedious to sit and drag this across wherever you're trying to read. But this is the magnifier. Okay, this is for scholars that are somewhat visually impaired, that struggle with seeing text. So for it to go away, you click disable magnifier. One tool that is going to be very helpful for all readers is the line, the line reader mask. So this allows you to read each line by line. Some scholars get bombarded and distracted by all the text on the page, but you are able to drag it down and move it line by line as you read. Okay, and in order to move it away, you would hide the line mask reader. One of my favorite tools here is the answer masking. So I find that this is most helpful in math, but it's still helpful in ELA. So the purpose that you would use the answer mask for is if you want to challenge yourself. Some scholars fall into the just read and click cycle, where they're not even referring back to the text. They see the answer, they see something that they think could be the answer, and they just click on it. Now, when you enable the answer mask, this challenging scholars to go back to the text and find their answer, or to go back and actually work out the problem and then look for the answer that matches close to what they chose. And if you want to uncover it line by line, you just push the I button so they can see the answer choices. Of course, if you want to take the answer masking off, then you would disable it. Okay, so these are most of the tools for ELA that are very helpful. Now I'm gonna go over the different type of questions. So right now we're on question 1. This is a part A, part B. Scholars need to understand that in order for them to get the whole question right, they must have both parts correct. There are many problems, questions where you only get 1 point. So if you miss one part, then you would get 0 points. There are some questions that are worth 2 points, and if you have part A right, they'll give you 1 point. However, if you have part A wrong and part B right, then you'll just get 0 points. So we want scholars to understand part A and part B. We also want them to be able to scroll up and down on each page. Remember this on the side that shows you whether you're at the top or the bottom of the page. Scholars should utilize that so they know if it's anything else left on the page. So this is question 1, part A and part B. PARCC is rich with part A and part B questions. So it's forcing scholars to go back to the text and find the answer. So this is a drag and drop problem, a drag and drop question. There are many types of drag and drop questions. This one, the directions say, select one word that describes the narrator and one word that describes how Claire feels. So what scholars need to understand is they need to make sure that whatever description they're picking for the narrator, that they're putting it under the narrator. Okay, scholars also need to understand that in this type of problem, once one item is removed, it is no longer available. Scholars also need to make sure that they are paying attention to where they are dragging and dropping these items. So for example, on this drag and drop, I have the capability of putting a description on a place where description does not go. The description should be where it says description. However, if I'm not paying attention, I can drag and drop it and put it into the wrong area. So this is one thing that you all want to practice a lot of, not necessarily getting it right, but just understanding the concept of it. So supporting evidence, most evidence is a quote from the text, so quotes will go in the supporting evidence. So when you're doing your practices and walkthrough with the scholars, you're making sure, are they dragging and dropping the items in the correct location? So this was, again, an example of a drag and drop. Let's see. Okay, so this does not give you the option of putting more than one in an area. So if I did want to replace angry with sympathetic, I would have to take angry out and then put in sympathetic. Okay, another part A, part B. So again, unit 1 is rich with part A, part B questions. And here's a text, written passage. So some of the features that you're able to use here, okay, you have the bold feature. Okay, bold makes it pop out and stand. Okay, you have the italics feature. Okay, we know sometimes italics is used in titles of stories. So if you want to be, if you want your written expressions to be correct, then you can use italics. Maybe it's something, a word that the scholar wants to underline, a vocabulary word that they learn or that they want to highlight in their response. You can underline. So we don't really want them to focus much on these because most of the time they want scholars to write essays or to write a paragraph. So if you're writing essays and paragraphs, then we really shouldn't be using the bullets or the numbers. However, sometimes it may say list your answers, and so you can do that. I want to show you the undo buttons. Okay, maybe you messed up and you want to undo something, so you can undo your last few actions, or maybe you undid something that you didn't mean to do, so you want to redo. Okay, I want to spell vocabulary wrong again, and let's see the spell check. But then my spell check, and there are 2 errors. Please, please, please advise your scholars to do the spell check before they get done, because one of their subclaims is the grammar and using the vocabulary correctly. So you can't get a on grade level score if you have grammatical errors and misspelled things. So they always want to go back and do a spell check. That's something we want to encourage. Also on this question, if you notice, now we have 2 passages here. Okay, scholars need to understand that they get from one passage to the next, that they have to click on the title. They also have to understand, if they want to read the text and into its entirety, that they should click on the box and wait for it to show up in blue. Okay. They always have scholars scroll to the end, okay? Let them know that the story isn't over until they see a copyright, and let them know where the excerpt came from. Where did the story come from? What year was it copyrighted? Okay, and this will let scholars know when they are at the end of their passage. Okay, so we are almost at the end of this tutorial. Again, we have more. So the passage has changed again. We don't really have any directions at the top of this page. Let's see, when did they provide us directions for this passage? Now we see the directions here inside of the passage, but once we switch stories, those directions at the top went away. So just be mindful of that. Okay, another thing, so most of these, as we know, these are multiple choice, but now down here we have a multiple select. I can't tell you how many scholars, whether it's homework, whether it's classwork practice, whether you reiterate it 10 times or not, that they should be picking 2 details. More than half will only choose 1. Okay, so we have to get in the habit of having scholars make sure that they read the question and figure out what's being asked. So one of the last parts that I want to share is this part right here. So notice that I highlighted the question. Okay, and so I have the capability of keeping this in light blue. Okay, and I also have the option of highlighting in pink. All right, so if I want to get rid of the highlight, then I will highlight it again. Okay, and click the red cross line, and that's how you would take out the highlight. Okay, so we want scholars to make sure that they use their highlight tool to highlight important things while they're annotating. Don't, highlight the whole text and whatnot, but we do want them to utilize their highlight tool. Okay, so if you all have any questions, make sure that you can email me or you can comment below, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial.